The class is coming to a close, but we still have one major topic to discuss, and that topic is globalism. So go to your materials under this section, under this week, and click on the Globalism PDF. Go, do it now. Click. I said do it now. Alright. Uh, you'll see globalism, the shrinking world. But if you go down and look, just take a minute and look at those next two frames. Um, just the idea of the lights, the idea of what kind of output, what kind of world we live in with the lights show us. And for your reference, if you look very closely, um, there's a little area called Danielson, Connecticut, who is the one dark spot in that endless string of lights from Richmond, Virginia, all the way through Maine. That's a side point. Um, what I want to look at today really is on slide 4. Because I want to look at one man. I want to take one man, look at his life, and discuss why he explains to us the modern world of globalism and, more importantly, global capitalism. If you haven't figured out, his name's Michael Jordan. Okay. Why would we focus on one man? Well, because at the time, throughout the 90s, into 2000s actually, he was the most recognized man on Earth. If you took a poll of all human beings on Earth, and there were a lot of these done, obviously, not all human beings could ever be polled, and asked, what man do you know? What man do you recognize? The one person most of them could actually recognize would have been Michael Jordan. There were these stories about people going to the tribesmen way back in the middle of nowhere, and actually these people would somehow have heard or seen Michael Jordan, and how he spread the gospel of basketball to the world. The question, how did this happen? And that's what we need to look at. How did this happen? Well, it requires 3 things, believe it or not. And the first, honestly, and your next slide kind of lists through all these, is Nike, right? Nike invested in him when he was just out of UNC. They sunk their money into him. They built a campaign around him. I mean, who here had Air Jordans at some point or still does? This is me raising my hand. This campaign that was built around him and incorporated other people, but focused on him in terms of their worldwide advertising, was just do it. 3 words, just do it. It's a simple campaign. Everyone can understand. It's a few words, and in the process, you're building this deity. You're building this man who's spreading the gospel of um, of basketball, and at the same time, spreading kind of a gospel of America. He got out there. But how can this one small company, Nike, actually advertise everywhere in the world? You have to go through hundreds of different kind of companies in hundreds of different countries, etc., etc. You don't. Not anymore. And that's our number 2. This is pre-internet stuff, please understand. Is global media conglomerates. It's 2 of them. CNN by Ted Turner, which today is reaching 212 different countries. CNN is shown in 212 different countries. Also, a company called News Corp. Rupert Murdoch owns it. It was originally Australian, but he defected to the U.S. because he realized he could make more money in the tax situation, of course. This is Fox News, Fox Channel, Fox Movies. Owns 80% of all the media outlets in Australia. He owns Eurosport, magazines, radio, newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal, mega Goliath. Um, well, in these by just advertising with these 2 companies, News Corp and CNN, Nike was able to reach almost every market in the world. And as it spread the concept of Nike, it also kind of spread American culture. So this gives us this question. Because now all of a sudden, you're getting this new type of company. And this new type of company that really did not form till the 90s, did not solidify till about 2000 even. It's called a multinational corporation. It's hard to even understand what it is, but what you have are companies like Nike who are based in the US. They produce their products in places like China, Vietnam, Bangladesh. They sell in Europe, the United States, and other countries. In these countries, in China and Vietnam, they're using sweatshop labor. They're using cheap labor, unfair work conditions, unregulated pollution. Um, they actually have government incentives to come in. Vietnam gave huge government incentives to a lot of luggage companies, plus Nike, plus some other people, mainly uh, clothing companies, to come in. The problem is these companies are completely unregulated. I mean, we look back at the monopolies, right? And we talk about how the trusts were busted. You can't do that to a multinational corporation. If you regulate the way Nike works, they can pick up and move to another country. All they gotta do is move an office. All they gotta do is open a P.O. box. More importantly, you cannot regulate the way they produce things because they're produced in another country. If the minimum wage rate rises in Vietnam, Nike will simply shut down that factory, move it to another country. And that other country will be glad to have them. It will give them tax incentives to be there, etc., etc. Um, and then 20 years later, after all these companies moved out of Vietnam, Vietnam's economy has collapsed, they can move back. Why do I say this? Because it's already happened in a couple countries. There is no international organization for regulation of these corporations. Alright. The only change that can have is one thing. And it has worked. And it's worked with Nike, it's worked with McDonald's, it's worked with a lot of companies. And it's public pressure. If public pressure gets enough, they can do two things. They can force bad publicity, and bad publicity means bad sales. Both of them work. Nike has actually massively improved. They now really don't run sweatshops anymore. McDonald's stopped selling styrofoam in any of their systems. They've miraculously become a fairly green company. Um, but there's another whole set to this. With these global media conglomerates, advertising for multinational corporations based in the US using figures like Michael Jordan, all of a sudden you get this new thing. This new thing that we hadn't dealt with called cultural imperialism. Which means that the US can be an imperialist nation to some extent without lifting a single gun, without asserting a single political influence. Because they have spread American culture. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Disney, movies, TV, the language of business, the internet is mostly in English. And it does more than just spread products, it spreads a conception of a lifestyle. This has angered some people. People like the French don't like this. People like the Chinese don't like it, and they don't want their country to be part of it. It's interesting. In a sense, this missionary zeal that we saw in the late 19th century, we see coming back as a cultural zeal of spreading the U.S. way of life. Now, this has resulted in some resentment, some fear. If you scroll through the next pictures, you'll see the far reach of McDonald's and Coca-Cola. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, is it really a good thing? Or do you just want to sit here and drink your cup? Have a good day.